The rain drizzled lightly as Daniel Carter stepped out of his car, adjusting the worn-out cap that concealed his sharp executive features. The parking lot was mostly full, another sign that the night shift at Carter Manufacturing was in full swing. Tonight, he wasn't here as the CEO. No press, no board members, no red carpet welcome. Just Daniel, an average worker blending into the factory floor to see firsthand how his company treated its employees. As he entered, the rhythmic hum of machinery filled his ears. Workers bustled around, their movements precise and mechanical. He walked past conveyor belts, pausing here and there, absorbing everything, the good, the bad, the overlooked. Then, he heard it. A voice raw, desperate. "Please, someone help me. I can't lose this job." Daniel turned sharply toward the sound. Near a row of heavy crates, a man knelt on the floor, clutching his wrist in pain. A supervisor loomed over him, clipboard in hand, lips pressed in a tight line. "Frank, we've been over this. You miss another shift, and I can't protect you. You know the policy." "My son's in the hospital," Frank pleaded. "I just need one more day to sort things out. Please. I'll work overtime. I'll do double shifts, anything." The supervisor sighed. "I don't make the rules." Daniel stepped forward. "What's going on?" His voice carried an authority that didn't match his disguise. The supervisor eyed him. "New guy. Keep walking. This doesn't concern you." Frank, however, looked up, his eyes glassy. "They're letting me go," he whispered. "My little boy's been sick. I missed too many shifts." Daniel's stomach tightened. This was his company. His policies. His responsibility. He took a deep breath, then did something no one expected. "I'll cover for him." The supervisor blinked. "What?" "I'll take his shifts. No pay needed. Just give him time with his son." Frank stared, hope flickering in his tired eyes. The supervisor scoffed. "That's not how this works." Daniel pulled off his cap. A hush fell over them. Recognition spread across the supervisor's face, draining all the color from it. Workers nearby turned, their whispers rising. "I make the rules," Daniel said, voice steady. "And I say Frank keeps his job." For a moment, silence. Then, Frank let out a shaky breath. "Thank you. God, thank you." Daniel put a hand on his shoulder. "Go be with your son." The next morning, a company-wide memo went out. A new policy: no employee would lose their job for choosing family over work. Frank returned a week later, eyes bright with gratitude. And Daniel? He kept visiting. No disguise. No distance. Just a leader who had finally learned what it meant to care. Because kindness wasn't just good business. It was the only business worth running. Undercover CEO visits his own factory, Part 2. The news of Daniel's unexpected visit spread like wildfire through the factory. By the next morning, everyone, from janitors to senior managers, was talking about how the CEO had personally stepped in to help a struggling worker. But for Daniel, the real work was just beginning. A broken system. Sitting in his office later that day, Daniel pulled up the company's policies. As he read through them, his stomach twisted. He had built Carter Manufacturing from the ground up. But somewhere along the way, the company had become a machine valuing efficiency over people. Strict attendance rules. No personal leave for emergencies. Workers treated as disposable. He clenched his jaw. This wasn't the company he wanted to run. Determined to make things right, he called an emergency board meeting. The resistance. "Daniel, we understand you had a moment last night," one of the executives, Mr. Holloway, began cautiously. "But policies are in place for a reason. If we start making exceptions, where do we draw the line?" Daniel leaned forward. "When a man has to beg for his job because his son is in the hospital, we've already crossed the wrong line." A murmur spread through the room. Some nodded in agreement. Others shifted uncomfortably. "We'll lose money," another executive argued. "We'll lose people," Daniel countered. "Good, hard-working people who give their best every day but are treated like machines." Silence. Then Daniel made a decision. If they wouldn't change the system, he would. A new beginning. Within a week, Carter Manufacturing announced a groundbreaking policy. White heavy checkmark paid emergency leave for workers facing family crises. White heavy checkmark better working conditions including fairer shift rotations. White heavy checkmark a direct CEO worker feedback system to ensure employees felt heard. The changes were met with disbelief at first. Could a CEO really care? But when Daniel returned to the factory, this time, not in disguise, but as himself, he saw the difference. Workers greeted him. Not with fear, but with respect. And Frank? He returned with a renewed spirit. His son recovering well. One evening, as Daniel walked through the factory, Frank approached him. "Sir, I don't know how to thank you." Daniel smiled. "Just pay it forward. Take care of the people around you. That's what real leadership is." As he looked around at his factory. Not just a workplace, but a community. He knew one thing for sure. A company wasn't built by policies. It was built by people. And he would never forget that again.